The South African Jews for a Free Palestine and the Nelson Mandela Foundation will be staging a Shabbat Against Genocide, which will be held in honor of the victory at the International Court of Justice. And SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo is there and he joins us for more. Khayelihle, a very good evening to you. Look, tell us more about this Shabbat. Who is invited? Who are the speakers that are expected to address the attendees? And what else can we expect from the event?
Well, that's right, Alicia. Quite a very poignant moment as the Nelson Mandela Foundation is having this particular occasion. As you know, that South Africa went to the International Court of Justice in light of the very worrisome events that you have seen in Gaza. So it's about reflections on that particular judgment as well, but also looking at the way forward. As you know, that the orders were issued where the court was patently clear to Israel to prevent any acts of genocide in Gaza. But for the past couple of days, we've seen incredibly awful scenes also in Rafah, which is seen as a last refuge for a number of Palestinians in Gaza who have been displaced as the conflict intensifies. But Alicia, we do have the acting CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, just in terms of the big names and the heavyweights that you can expect. So Van Harris, once again, thank you so much indeed for your time. So the significance of tonight. I mean, we know that there has been a global outcry about the events in Gaza, but also South Africa as well being lauded for not keeping quiet in light of these events. Tell us about the importance of tonight.
Well, for the foundation, the significance is that Madiba taught us that justice is indivisible. So a struggle for justice anywhere is linked to all other struggles for justice. I think two things we're trying to achieve as part of a continuing series of dialogues for us to better understand what can be done to stop the war and to begin to build a just society there. That's the longer term objective, is how do we build the kind of solidarity that will lead to lasting change.
So the achievement of the ceasefire, I would imagine, is a very critical issue. But over the past couple of days, Mr. Harris, we saw South Africa going back to the ICJ saying, look, we see what's happening in Rafah, and really the court should act in terms of stopping Israel from violating further the Genocide Convention and the orders that were issued against Israel. What would be your message? I mean, as a foundation, you have been so outspoken about the human rights issues, about injustices. What could be your message to the authorities in Israel and other parties involved in this conflict?
Look, our message to everyone who has influence is to do what needs to be done to stop the war. And then we start talking about how you build a lasting peace in that region. So, we've been saying for a while now, it's not only about the Israeli Defense Force. It's also about the powers that be around the world that are aiding and abetting what's happening there. And, the court has made a ruling is that we see an intention for genocide. That's a ruling that we believe is correct.
And maybe just before I let you go, Mr. Harris, obviously quite a number of heavyweights are expected. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Lamola, and also Adila Hassim, one of the legal minds, who took part in that all-important sessions at The Hague. Who else can we expect in terms of the perspective and the conversation?
Well, we always talk about the big names, but we're hoping to get a conversation going here. You can see there's almost like a picnic environment here. We want to hear the voices of the people who are attending. And we believe that the people who will be coming are people who believe deeply in Madiba's legacy and believe in justice.
And obviously, I mean, these are South African Jews for a Free Palestine that you're collaborating with, and they've just been so vocal about this conflict, in terms of denouncing what's happening, but also calling for more countries to show support, especially now because it looks like it's a turning point, given what we're seeing happening there.
Well, I think for us as South Africans, the importance of what's happening in that part of the world has to do with our history. Is that we fought a long struggle against apartheid, and now we're seeing other forms of apartheid emerging. And we believe that the underlying cause of the conflict in Palestine and Israel is a form of apartheid. It's a form of colonial settlerism that has to be addressed. There will be no peace unless we address that systemic issue. And I think we as South Africans, we have something to offer in terms of building solidarity and building strategies. But we also, I think we owe a debt to the world to raise our voices, and our government has done that. And we at the Foundation are proud of our government for having done what it did.
All right, Mr. Harris, thank you so much indeed for that. So, Alicia, he's with the Nelson Mandela Foundation. So this is where the all-important conversation will happen, reflecting on the ICJ ruling, especially at this critical time where ahead of the African Union summit, you have so many countries really who are totally opposed to Israel being granted an observer status to the continental body. So it's going to be a very massive issue that continues to garner all kinds of reaction.